Hey, what's up everybody? Tech Chucker here, and today we're going to do another review of the Hasbro Marvel Legends Absorbing Man Wave Spider-Gwen. Now this was the must-have figure of this wave. Let's crack this thing open and take a closer look and see if it lived up to the hype. Alright, so let's take a look at the articulation on this figure, and some of it's pretty good and some of it's not so great. But we're going to go ahead and start with the head, and her head is actually on a ball peg with a hinge, which is really nice, especially for the female characters, because we haven't gotten that in female figures in the past. But she can look up quite a bit, which is really nice. It does look a little funny with the hood, but that's okay. And she's able to look almost all the way down, or pretty much all the way down. She can get her chin into her chest, which is great. No issues with the side to side. There is just barely any tilt. But there is a little bit depending on how you position that head. She has a ball hinge joint in her shoulder, and she can get her arm all the way up, which is awesome. I can't complain at all, and she has full rotation of that arm. There is no bicep swivel, but she does have a single hinge and then a peg in her elbow, and then there's a peg and a hinge in her wrist, and there's no real issues with that. Moving into the torso, she's got that standard, I believe, double ball peg in her upper torso, and it actually allows for a decent amount of twist and crunch to a certain degree, but not much forward crunch, a little bit of backward arch, which is okay. And you can see here she is able to tilt just a little. No problems with the rotation. In the hips, she has T-jointed hip joints, and she's able to do the splits about this much, which is a little bit more than the Pizza Spidey, but it's still, I wish it was a little bit better. She is able to kick forward this much, just about all the way, until it starts pushing that leg outwards, and not much for backwards kick, which is pretty disappointing, especially for a female figure. I really expect better flexibility. Her upper thigh cut works really well. Double jointed knees, which have, there's no issues there. She can get them bent pretty much in half. There is an upper shin boot cut, which is okay. And then she has a hinge in her ankle, and she's able to get her foot all the way back and forward very, very far, which is great. And then she has a good ankle rocker, which works very, very well. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the articulation on this figure. It is quite good, especially those shoulders. I'm really happy about the shoulders. I really can't complain since we're getting that hinge joint in the neck as well, which, like I said before, we haven't been getting that very much. So I'm really happy with this. The sculpt and the paintwork on this figure are actually pretty decent. I'm actually pretty happy with that. This alternate head, the unmasked head that we get, is nicely detailed. The hair is sculpted very, very nicely. There's not much for paint detail within that. The headband is painted fairly well though. And the eyes, I'm pretty happy with. Mine were not derpy looking, so I'm happy with how that turned out. The paint lines throughout are actually pretty well done, especially the webbing throughout the inner arms. And I really like the feet, the way that those were painted. I think they did a pretty good job with that. This alternate head and hood are probably the best part of this figure, especially the hood. If I can get this head out of it, we'll take a look first at the head, and this is sculpted really nicely. Those eyes are actually sculpted in, and then the paint is pretty clean, pretty cleanly done. I like the kind of that pinkish shade work they did, but the inside of this hood is really what's impressive. The outside, there's no real shading, but that's okay. It is sculpted very nice. But they did the webbing on the inside of that hood, and it is just amazing. And let's just take a look and see. So this unmasked head, she gets basically the hood piece that just fits over, and that works really nice. It actually looks pretty good. So in that respect, I'm pretty happy with that. But here's what the alternate or masked head looks like, and I think this looks the best on this figure if I can get it on there. That peg is really tiny. But I'm really impressed with this. I'm not 100% certain that I love the floating hood, but in the end, it still looks pretty darn good, and I'm really happy with this. I do wish that we got a few more hands, but these thwipping hands look pretty decent. I do feel that they might be slightly too big for this body mold, but that might just be me being a little bit picky. So here is a comparison of our Spider-Gwen next to Red Guardian. So she is considerably smaller, which I would expect. So all in all, I'm pretty darn happy with the way that this sculpt and the paint turned out on this figure. All in all, this is a pretty good figure. There's a few little issues here and there. Sometimes, just like a lot of the female characters, it can be a little bit tough to pose, but not nearly as difficult as some of the other female characters. Her feet are sized a little better for the size of her sculpt. She's not super top heavy either, so she's a fairly fun figure to pose around. The issues really are going to be the accessories. The paint is a little bland in some areas, but they really made up for it in the arms and whatnot. So I definitely recommend this as a pickup for your collection. I've never seen any other Spider-Gwen action figures in the 6-inch range, so definitely it's a must-have. I don't know how easy it's going to be to find this one now, but you should be able to find it somewhere, I would think. So make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you like this video, and I will see you later.
Tetris Brain Blast.